Hello and welcome to a SmurDP video, and today we're looking at X-Men Mutant Massacre Prelude Marvel Omnibus. Now, the reason I'm starting like this and not in my usual position is, why Marvel? Why would you give us a white covered omnibus when you know we want it to sit on this particular shelf with these? I mean, you could probably argue more these than the Uncanny X-Men. Most people have used this to replace this. So why would you make it so standy outy? That was a lot of crap that I just said there. I mean, I don't really mind X-Men Classics because I could, in theory, just stick that anywhere else, even though I stick it there because it sits in here. But this really bugged me. And don't get me wrong, we've had lots of different coloured omnibuses, but when you're meant to be creating this sort of the standard across, it does get a little bit tedious. I mean, I can drop down quite nicely, and all right. I mean, these are hardback, so you can argue that actually them being a different colour makes sense. Yeah. Cyclops is a bit more special, and obviously we do get the wraparound omnibus as well. But yeah, I just wanted to get this bugbear out of my hair before I even begun. So let's get into this. Okay, so here is the cover, and I think I just have the standard one that was released. It's not my... In fact, I think I didn't like the other one, so I think I was always going to go with this. The other one had the original X-Men running and the second Genesis team above them, if I remember rightly. So I think I was always going to go with this one, regardless whether I like direct market covers or not. Now, this book collects a small portion of this and all of this. Very, very simple. For a lot of people, that was irritating. For me, I'm always going to collect the Uncanny X-Men because they all, well, I say they all go together. They've changed the damn spines, but you know what I mean. They all should... I still feel the need to be collecting them as their own entity. X-Factor as well. I like this book because it has pretty much all of it. And if I wanted to read, just say, X-Factor, I could, rather than reading all the event books that follow this one. So, but you could just get this. And most of the X-Factor are in those event ones. I can't remember if all of this is in there. I would have to go and look in. I'll be honest, I'm not going to go look. So I'm just going to gently shift these out of the way. Very, very carefully. He says while making lots of noise. And then let's do what I wanted to do. So we have this beautiful, beautiful cover. This is a massive book. Absolutely massive. I wanted this in particular because I felt it was just perhaps easier for me to read rather than jump between Uncanny X-Men and X-Factor, and I thought that this might be the easy solution. I've got the best of both worlds. I can literally just read it and not worry about jumping from book to book. So the golden era before their darkest days of Mutant Massacre. Yeah, it was a dark day. So this collects Uncanny X-Men 194 to 209, X-Men Annual 9 to 10, New Mutants Special Edition, New Mutants Annual 2, Nightcrawler 1 to 4, Longshot 1 to 6, Avengers 263, Fantastic Four 286, X-Factor 1 to 8, Annual 1, Iron Man Annual 8, Amazing Spider-Man, and a Classic X-Men 8 and 43. I think, I was certainly very disappointed that Uncanny X-Men didn't have those first issues of X-Factor, and you can see by this book, they're either trying to give it to us or they're trying to rip us off. It's either way, but Uncanny X-Men was always going to happen. And it is the Uncanny X-Men, even though it does drop in the little mini-series, like, for example, Longshot, Nightcrawler, Wolverine and Key Pride, which... you could argue they didn't actually need to be in there, especially if you weren't going to put these X-Factor issues in here as well. So, you know, that's just a little gripe as well that I thought I'd point out. So I love the fact that it's got all the issues on the side. So let's take the cover off. I'm not going to try and count all those issues. So it has the very talented team on this side, which, apologies, my hand is actually getting in the way. And then we have a nice little synthesis this side. I never read those, if I'm being honest with you. And then we have this beautiful, and I'm going to try open it. I don't usually do this, but I'm going to try because this is, wait a minute. Try and get it in the middle. It's very difficult. This is gorgeous. Look at that. That is from the Asgardian Wars. But let me just do that in slow. That's great. I love that. I absolutely do adore that. That is fantastic. That's been done. Let me make sure my book's okay. Right, this is going to be a beefy book, so I can imagine this bit is going to be a bit painful. So this is the bit where I try to scroll through the book, but it's massive, so I'm going to try and be very careful. And I may knock the camera holder like I did. I've already done it twice. So I'm sorry if you're bouncing there watching this video now. So this has a whooping 1,293 issues. And this runs from 1986 January to 1980. Yeah, okay, you're not giving me the month, which is the last month I can find is, no, that's gone back to 1985. Yeah, this is confusing, because we have some 1986 and we have some 1995, and depending on what order they've dropped this in, it's a wee bit out of sync. Let's go to 208. August 1980, September 1986 is the last date, and then it's got a few bits at the end, which are 1985, which I find a bit bizarre, unless that's just a misprint, because maybe that's a misprint. That's completely thrown me off. Sorry, one second. I'm just gonna carefully do this. Let's try not to knock everything over. Yeah, Longshot is in the Uncanny X-Men, and that is exactly the same order. So yeah, very bizarre that, unless that is just a typo, perhaps. It could be a typo. And then, you've even got some stuff from 1987, 1990, which was the classic X-Men, which was where they were retelling stories, but they were also developing the characters a bit better than perhaps they had been done, like Chris perhaps would have done in those original issues. So, yeah, this was a great... Apologies, I had a very excited daughter telling me that I had a Christmas card. So I will have a look at that afterwards. So yeah, this is a nice sort of in-between area. I think this is where we were starting to see developments of these characters that were about to leave, a lot of them permanently, from that world, so they could start moving towards the Australian Outback team. Apologies. So yeah, lots of development. You also get the likes of Rachel Summers coming inbound. Earlier, bear in mind that I read a lot of these books later on. It felt earlier than what I thought, and then she just sort of disappears and then rocks up in Excalibur, etc. You get like the likes of the Reavers, etc. And then you get the X Factor issues in there, which they're not essential to the thing. It's just building up the original team again, really, and seeing how they work together. But you could argue that actually these issues do not potentially create it. This is just about us being completists, really, or being, in my mind, event completists, because that's what this book is. This book is designed for those who like the events rather than collecting the Uncanny X-Men. Although, if you're collecting these, I'm not sure why you wouldn't collect the Uncanny X-Men, because that actually does make a lot of sense. Oh, we've got the stuff with Nimrod in here. Oh, yeah, Longshot. Do you know what? I think I read this maybe a couple of years back. I never understood how Spiral came to be. So it's actually absolutely very clever indeed how that happens. But yeah, I like the Longshot. The miniseries are absolutely really good. I'm actually planning. He says, I'm intent to go back to the beginning in the new year and make my way through X-Men, etc. And yeah, this part's pivotal because this is showing the part with what happens to Jean Grey in the White Heart room as well, that she's there. And you got some nice art covers, which is great. In fact, this takes me, if you look at this takes up a big chunk. So it's, considering how big the book already is, I love that bit, you know. And bear in mind, I didn't really sort of know what Star Trek was back then, but when that came on, I loved that. And there's a song by Queen that automatically reminds me of this every time, because I must have been reading it in a car or something. Yeah, it's got everything that I think you can expect from it. The only thing that I think changed, bear in mind, this wasn't me exploring this, I got this from somebody else, was that there is a word that is derogative, I think, kept in one of the other volumes, omnibuses, but I think it's removed in this one. I could be wrong. And don't get me wrong, I agree that derogative terms shouldn't be used towards people at all. They shouldn't be treated that way. However, history is what history is. And in my mind, I can read these. I mean, if you go back to the early 60 volumes, you can see what perhaps a sexist world it is, for example. But I can read them and understand it was a different time, a different world. And I think sometimes, and not that I get political, but sometimes I think people growing into the world now as adults don't seem to understand that there was a world before them, and what we should be doing is we should be reading these things. I'm not saying that they should be wiped from history. We should be and learning from them to prevent them and ensure that they do not happen again. That's my take on it anyway. That's how I've always understood history. You watch these atrocities, you learn about these atrocities, so you can be part of a solution that prevents them again. In 100 years, we're going to be perhaps talking about the UK government, how horrendous they were, how they treated their people. And at some point, there may be some sort of a rising up. You know, it certainly wouldn't surprise me if that eventually happens, because people are fed up of the government. And that's what this government don't seem to realize, that they are absolutely not winning any favors in this world. So yeah, and then it shows some covers. I'm sorry, I've got all political and stuff. Now, I don't usually, but just sometimes when things crop up, I do try to give my views on it, etc. And I'm not that person. I mean, I want to come and review this book, but because that has happened, I have to talk about it, right? Just to give my opinion on it. Because if I don't give my opinion, am I a reviewer in my own right? Have I done right by myself? And just get your thoughts as well. So, you know, you're either going to hate what I say or like what I say, or say, actually, that sort of makes sense. Or you can say you're a bloody beep. Anyway, you have a lovely day. Please look after yourself. It's very important. Thank you to everybody that subscribed to my channel. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, really appreciate you subscribe to my channel. Make sure you look after yourself. I think I said that twice. And embrace geekiness. Take care. Goodbye.